Before we get into this episode, there's something that might be of interest that I wanted to tell you about. Scene and Heard, who run this podcast, have been asked by Scotland Food and Drink to undertake a strategic review of the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards. Now, these Excellence Awards have been going for almost 20 years and are a huge mainstay of the food and drink sector. But it's time to ensure that they're still relevant. So if you have ever been involved in the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards, or even if you've ever had an opinion about them, we would love for you, please, to complete our survey. So if you go to the OnFARM Twitter, which is at @on_farm UK, and click the link in the bio, there will be a tab in there that will take you to the survey, and it should only take you a very short while to complete, but we would be enormously grateful.
Hello, it's Monty here for this episode of On Farm. This is part 2 of our big chat about current issues facing farming, with 4 brilliant guests.
I'm Rory Christie and I'm a dairy farmer and pig farmer from southwest Scotland. I'm also Vice Chair of SAOS and Founding Chairman of the Milk Supply Association.
I'm Marion MacCormick. I hail from Oban. I was a buyer with Aldi for nearly 20 years. I'm now on the Scotland Food and Drink Board and do a lot of work with the RET. And I co-own a small confectionery company out of Glasgow, which I'm glad to say is furnished with British sugar beets, British dairy products, and I'm delighted to be here with you all.
My name's Neil White. I'm an arable farmer from the southeast of Scotland, producing lots of different combinable crops here on the farm. You can have a good day out on my produce. You start with your porridge in the morning, have a little bit of beer at lunchtime, some whiskey in the evening, some gin maybe just to top you up, and then maybe finish with some wheat-fed chicken in the evening, which you can buy from the local shop. I don't produce the chicken. I just overselling as usual.
No, you feed the chicken, that's fine. Yeah,
I feed the chicken, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Good morning, sheep fans. Cammy's the name, sheep's the game. I'm a 31-year-old sheep farmer from southwest Scotland. I'm based here in Ayrshire, running about 1,000 sheep total, and I have a YouTube channel that's all about sheep called The Sheep Game.
I'm delighted, we're delighted to have such a lot of talent, brains and passion for farming in our programme. If you missed part 1 last week, I would suggest you go back and listen to it in full. But if you want to carry on straight into this episode, here's a little bit of an idea about what we talked about last time.
I think at the moment, the uncertainty, I would say more than the weather in the market, it's actually everybody's sort of asking, well, where are we going with this? And I think we have to, they say about trees, putting the right tree in the right place. Well, I actually think farming's about that. It's about putting the right crop or the right animal in the right place.
We should have a national food strategy map. We have a network that can take our primary produce, have it converted and be sold locally.
I was particularly struck by Cammy's take on life. He personally has a real passion for farming and what he does. His take on life is, let's grab it with both hands. Let's be passionate. It's all about being positive.
I'm just running about doing the things I do anyway whilst holding the camera, and people seem to enjoy it. I love what I do. Like, when I left the police last year, I'm 31-year-old, but I said to my gaffer when I left, I genuinely feel like I'll never work another day in my life. My mindset's totally changed over the years, because when I first started in the police, we didn't have sheep. My dad was a shepherd and he sort of pushed me this way of, there's no money in being a shepherd, which he's quite right, it's a lifestyle thing. Go and do something else. So I became a police officer because the SNP were like, we're desperate, we need 1,000 new cops, we'll let him in. So 18-year-old, I went straight out of school and joined the police. It was a different mindset. It was, you have to get the nice car on a finance deal. You have to buy the nice house. You need Fred Perry gear or whatever the fancy gear is these days. It's weird. Where it's like, and I genuinely, I mean this, I'm wearing a pair of tracksuit bottoms just now because I'm scanning every day in my joggies. I've been wearing them since the 3rd of January, every day. And if that isn't just the way to live your life, what a great lifestyle that is.
You're never going to sell farming as a career to young people or persuade people that farming is a great way of life if you're constantly moaning.
I think the key thing is that it's fun. And you're asking us tonight, Monty, what is the future? Well, unless the future's fun, nobody's going to want to do it.
Rory Christie, with his comments about food as medicine.
What is absolutely at the root of good health is good food. You attach the relevance of what British, Scottish farming does to that well-being of our nation, then you build a nation from the ground up, literally from farming up to having good well-being.
The well-being of the nation should start with healthy food, eh? So last time we finished up talking about how we need to find ways to make Scottish food and farming more relevant to people. And that, listeners, is where we're going to pick up this time.
As far as I can see, the problem is unhealthy food is big money. You know, that's where, these big companies making massive profits out of cheap, crap food. And someone told me a thing the other day, and this is just hearsay, so I'm not quoting this as a correct stat because I've just heard it secondhand, but somebody told me something like some of these vegan, I keep mentioning that because I'm not having a go at them at all, it's just I'm using that as an example. These vegan meals, they were talking about why they saw these adverts and it's pushed so hard, vegan this, from, big companies and stuff, and it's like 90% profit, whereas you look at the price of lamb, of beef, the margin that the supermarket has, while still probably a little bit too much and more should go to the farmer, it'll be a lot less than what they get off of something that they can wrap in plastic and keep for ages and say it's the same as meat.
It's as simple as this, right? There are thousands of food producers around the world, and in the regular food market there are hundreds of thousands probably of food processors. If we get to the point that we've got synthetic food with IP on it, there'll be 2 or 3 or 5 monster companies who own the right to make food. And we do not want to get there. So synthetic food made by multi-billion-dollar companies, the food equivalent of Apple, okay?
But that's the thing, if you get that, and even the companies just now though, behind these things, if you've got enough money, you can push any agenda you want. You can fill social media with it. I mean, I even seen, quite gutted today actually, I saw Eddie Hall, who, he talks a lot of nonsense all the time, but I actually quite repped him because, World's Strongest Man a few years ago, said he was going to do it. Everyone said, oh, you're too short, you'll never get... He said he was going to do it and he went and did it. Deadlift. I like that about him. But he's on the day doing an advert for the McPlant burger. And it's like... And what annoyed me was he starts the advert as, hi, I'm Eddie Hall, World's Strongest Man. It's like, you didn't get World's Strongest Man no eating meat, like all those guys at the top, and most top athletes, like, meat is such a big that, but that's money. Throw enough money at somebody. Hey, if you throw enough money at me, I'll tell you how great the McPlant burger is.
I guess before Monty starts saying we're not getting credible, and you've got 2 anti-establishment idiots here on the conspiracy theories, there is something to be said for it. But if you asked us to talk about, what it could look like in the future. What it could look like, it could go a number of ways, but there are things that need to happen. Something that's close to my heart at the moment is energy production. So I live in DeVries in Galway, longest single line of sight wind farm in Europe. Goes all the way from Berwickshire to Glenluce to Whiteleys at Glasgow. And if you stand in the right place, you can see it all the way. But guess what? I can't get a connection. I can't get connection at all in the grid. Now my carbon footprint is 50% power. 50% enteric methane for ease accounting. So how could I sort that? Well, I could quite easily go power neutral by having wind, solar and battery, or a combination of. But I cannot get a connection in the grid. I need about half a megawatt to a megawatt to do that. And critically, I need battery technology. And it could be done if I could get the infrastructure. Now, DeVries in Galway has got lots of farmers like me, and smaller and bigger. And every one of them could access wind, solar and battery. And if they've got battery, then when the milk tanker comes to collect my milk, it can plug in for the 40 minutes it sits there to suck out and use my power generation to go to the next farm. And then I guess if you get to what they call superabundant electricity, if you get the right combination of SWB, solar, wind and battery, then I can start to do things like pulling atmospheric nitrogen out and putting it into my slurry. I then start to move away from what they call Haber-Bosch, which is fertiliser. So it can become very quickly, if power neutral or even positive, even become micro-generators for the grid. But you have to have a willpower from either your region or the nation to put in the infrastructure to do it. At the moment, there is one 33,000 volt line in the South Mackers of Scotland, and nobody can touch it because the grid is over capacity with all these windmills that are owned by foreign companies and whose profits are leaving our shores. Now, I could half and so could the rest of the Fries and Galloway's farmers, half their carbon footprint without touching their enteric methane if they could generate their own power.
That was one of the points that we did make to government, in various meetings, was that the micro-generation, on-farm generation, was overlooked. Always overlooked. We'd been in Germany and been around there, and there would be a couple of turbines and then an anaerobic plant and then another couple of turbines, all different companies, everybody micro-generating. And then if you've got surplus, you could maybe put it into the grid, or you could store it in a battery, like you say. But I think we are very well placed in rural communities to be providing power for ourselves, maybe other houses nearby. I have a biomass boiler here, and I burn rape straw, so it comes off the field on the other side of the road, goes in a 5'4" round bale into my boiler, and that provides the heat and hot water for my house and the offices that I'm sitting in here, my wife's offices, for a day. One bale keeps all of that going for a day.
So you may ask, why are we fighting about a gas oil field off the coast of Shetland? And why are we allowing or asking INEOS to bring in shale gas from America? I know that we need to rely on them now, and we're terribly worried about what's happening in Ukraine. But is it not better to have plan B as well, which is invest in power generation here, invest in the very people you have asked to underpin your GHG reduction targets in the country? We can do it for the nation, but give us the tools to do it. And that is absolutely what's not happening. So, Monty, if you want us to have a future, a 20, 30 year great place to be, because guess what, when I start to do that, I might start making some money. I'll start making some money, and then I can start investing in less. I might just have less cows, because I don't actually need to have as many, because I'm not running like a hamster on the mill that I can't get off, so I can have 20% less. And I can make some money doing other things. Because really what's wrong is I've got all my eggs in the agricultural basket, and it's getting fragile.
Right, let's go for that then. Let's pretend that we're on that. What was that BBC programme? Is it 7 Up, when they come back and look at kids in the 7, 14, etc. If I was to say to you, right, okay, you've been a great panel tonight, and we're going to have you back in 7 years' time, where would you be? Where will you be as you, and where will you be as your business? And I'll go to Marion first.
I would like to be, I probably will be retired, but I'd like to be reflecting on the fact that we have taken a chance on, being thinking visionary, thinking about all the positive things that we have, and investing in them rather than selling our soul, selling our assets. As I've always been an advocate of producing less and valuing it more. The less we have of certain things, the more precious it is. And Scotland is a magnet. We just don't make enough of that. So I'd like to be looking back to think whether it be food, carbon, soil, in terms of, reputation, in terms of our integrity of how we do things. We've actually listened to a lot of the people who are doing very innovative things and taken some of those things on.
Cammy.
So I like all these I don't know if they're self-help books, but there's a great book called Atomic Habits, and it's this idea that, like, don't set goals, just set systems, and just keep doing the systems, and you'll get to your goal. But like goals, you set a goal and then things change, like subsidies change, or anything can happen in life. But if you keep doing the systems, so like, I actually don't know where I'm going. I'd like to buy a farm, but I don't assume that if I keep doing well, I'll buy a farm. I just think, like, I never knew I was going to be doing YouTube and doing these things, 3 years ago. So I just keep doing the system of work with my sheep, build the YouTube, and see what route these things take me. I have no idea. It's the answer. To give a pure cheesy answer, if I was as happy as a mother now and enjoying what I do, then that's a win for me. But I don't know. As someone especially that's on seasonal lets and has no business plan no long-term finance that I need to keep working towards the next 7 years. I've no idea. That's the honest answer. It's a terrible answer, but I don't know.
It's an honest answer. It's a good answer. Neil?
Well, I obviously, at the moment, we're making some longer term plans. I've got a son who's interested and a daughter who's not interested, despite me continually telling her she could quite easily be an arable farmer. So I suppose I'm working 7 years actually in my head doesn't really seem that far away. And we always think there's going to be huge change. And actually there's often quite a lot less change than they think there's going to be. But I hope that food and drink production is still at the heart of what I do, because I don't see the desire for those products going away, and I hope that we can produce the raw materials for that here, because I passionately believe that this is one of the best places in the world to farm what I'm farming. I think when you take all the factors into consideration with the climate, the proximity to markets, even political stability and everything, it's as good a place. We often used to say, well, if we were going to emigrate somewhere, where would we go? And I say, well, I would have to do something different. If I'm going to be a farmer, it doesn't get any better than doing it here, So sadly, I see myself doing a similar version of what I'm doing now, but I would like to even more reduce, my cultivations, find a way to have an even lighter touch on the ground, and maybe probably try and grow my business more. I think it is becoming more scalable. I'm a one-man band at the moment. I would love to employ. I think it's a great thing to employ people. My wife employs quite a lot of people, and I would like to have someone, if my son was going to work it, not have to work on his own, have a big enough farm where you could have someone else and move your business forward in that way. But no, I hope that food and drink, the Scottish food and drink industry has some very, very ambitious targets, for the next kind of 5 to 10 years. And if they're going to hit them, somebody's going to have to produce that stuff. And I think it should be done here.
I love that. I love that pride from you, Neil. I think that's, and from Cammy. I think that's brilliant. Rory, 7 years' time.
I hope my cows are given 25% more milk each, because I've done such a brilliant job on genetic improvement. And I hope that 25% is extra milk that produces going to a Scottish-owned farmer cooperative that's doing innovative new dairy products. I hope my pigs continue to perform at world-beating level, which my brother does, and that those pigs are being sold to a Scottish, fully integrated, processed in Scotland. I hope I'm power neutral, and I hope I'm growing herbal lays, and I'm doing something else for the environment, legacy trees and things like that. Maybe most importantly, we got a complete surprise when our daughter, who did really well in her exams, got 5 A's in her hires, turned around and said, "Daddy, I want to go to Newcastle to study agriculture." Not something that we saw coming. So that's pretty cool. So I've got to maybe start thinking about the continuation and what that's going to look like. The mother daughter's shaping up, wanting to go to Young Farmers as well, which is worrying. What will I be doing? I hope that in 7 years' time I've got the staff and the management structure in place, that all of this vision that I have is being run by them. They're hitting all the technical standards, and I hope I'm regularly away from the farm, letting them have the space, and I'm away doing vision enablement, and I'm helping put in place these things that I see need to be done, whether it be in some industry organisation or doing TED Talks around the world. Whatever it is, I've got the same pride and passion that everybody in this room has got, and I want to make it happen.
Well, there you are. Marion, you're involved in RET as well, and surely the education side of things, that's going to be key to promoting our industry and creating a better understanding of what we do in the future.
Since I've been involved in RET, I think that what I was surprised to find is so much of it is the work that they do to educate kids is supported by and funded by the farming community. And I do think, and the government does have a role to play in it and recognises the good that it does, but I just think there's a disconnect around what the objectives are and what the outcome they want to be. So one minute we're kind of supporting Scottish agriculture through the back door, but then we're not we're bashing it, in terms of some of the educational policies. I think that should be much more aligned, and children truly understand what's possible in terms of what comes out of the ground in Scotland and what it can convert to, at home, in the home. And I think an awful lot of them don't understand it, and then if they don't understand it, they don't value it.
And RET's playing a big part in that, though, in trying to avoid that miss or solve that problem.
Yeah. I was saying there was everything. My observations of RET are doing a fantastic job. The coordinators around the country. It's all they are part-time paid, and then we've got all the CI groups doing their piece. But they're scratching the surface. And if Education Scotland is not integrated with that, their message, they're lots of farms are putting in lots of time, but I think if it was much more coordinated, it could be so much better for agriculture, for food, for, just an integrated policy sitting around that whole piece.
I suppose, actually, as far as this pod's concerned, the integration is RET maybe picking up the sort of school-age kids and what have you in a sort of more formal setting, but then people like Cammy on YouTube in a less formal environment, they're going to learn a lot from things like that, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. I think, and that's, I keep saying, marketing-wise, that's what missing. We don't. The farming community talks a lot to itself, but kids today they're not listening to that. They're listening to different channels completely, and we need real live people. That's what they look and watch all the time. We need them talking really positively about farming, or little cameos about whatever it might be. And what Cammy is doing is exactly that. And there's some amazing young people around Scotland and the UK doing that, but it's not done. It's here and there, and if it was better targeted, or coordinated, I think it could be much more effective, because people just find it by chance, maybe through family connections, or through a bit of interest, or through something just fun, or something exceptional that Cammy does that's really hilarious. Do you know what I mean? But influencing is massive, and people are really influenced by their peer groups or what they see that's fun and positive. And I think that RET's they do it as a really good job, but they just need help on that and we all need to be talking much more positively beyond the RET network, in education.
Marion, how do we, agriculture is a STEM, it's not STEM science, it's a STEM subject, the science, technology, engineering and maths. That is agriculture. We need to be being talked about at school and at university in those terms with that respect. And we need to, Cammy and his cohort, to make it cool. How do we get it into education? How do we get it taught at school as a science? When I look at, when I was looking for courses with my daughter, where you could go and what you could do, actually seeing in Scotland and the UK, the courses are pretty boring, and they're not very cool. If you go to Amsterdam, go to Wagenheim or these other places, Haas University, you study agricultural entrepreneurialism. Now, how cool is that? And they were turning out all sorts of kids doing all sorts of innovative, exciting stuff. I've got 2 young men coming in from UCD Dublin for 6 weeks at a time this spring, totally passionate about their agriculture, doing agricultural business innovation. And one of them has just arrived from Cornell. He's been away for a semester, New York, studying dairy systems over there. There is such opportunity coming. The food is so important. Get it onto the education system and get people to respect it. Is that something? How do you do that, Marion? How do you get it mainstream?
Yeah, RET spends a lot of time engaging with teachers, but it's sometimes it's an uphill battle, because you get the teachers who are interested, who are focused on it, and they've created a whole amount of, in the last 2 years throughout the pandemic, creating assets, creating video, creating digital content, all that kind of thing that can be used. But you have to get teachers adopting that and having the enthusiasm and understanding it. And, there are many who do, but there are the majority that don't. I think there are 32,000 schools or something in Scotland, and we're in the thousands, but not in the tens of thousands, and that's where we need to be.
And am I right in saying that there's virtually no, I mean, it sounds maybe terrible, there's no home economics taught? If we don't teach kids about food, how will they know, how will they be able to differentiate between a Scottish chicken breast and Kentucky fried chicken, where the chicken came from Brazil?
You're absolutely right. There are home ec teachers. There are often not resources in schools to be able to fund food for the kids to create things. But there are courses. There are new courses that have come into being, and I mean but it's usually the food sector that's really promoting that in terms of apprenticeships, in terms of courses, in terms of, I think Stirling's running one in terms of the teaching college, and there is an interest. But it's from a very small base. We've kind of lost it, and we have to, the tide has to turn and go the other way.
Cammy, are you listening to all this? I think we're looking at you as being a bit of not just a social media influencer, but also an educator.
Yeah, do you know what? I was thinking just when we were talking there that, and my name was getting mentioned there by Marion, like, it's amazing how much I've learned, and this isn't so much about educating the public as much as it's amazing what I've learned about farming since starting the YouTube, because after I started getting a few people watching it, I started to feel this real weight of responsibility that anything I say on here, people are going to take as, I'm not saying they're going to take it as gospel at all, but they're going to take it as what I'm saying is correct. Because if you say anything with confidence, people will believe you more or less. I mean, look at Boris, he's class at it. So like,
I was waiting on someone saying that.
But it's so true. Like, it is true, isn't it? You say anything with confidence and real belief, people will believe it. And so now I think back to like when I first started working with sheep, essentially my story kind of goes that when I was 25 my dad died and he was a shepherd, and that's where I worked with sheep. It was very sudden, and I was like, bit of a grief thing really. I'm like, I'm going to buy some of my own sheep so I can still work with sheep, and that's kind of how it all kicked off. But then once I got the sheep, I was always like, why did I never ask him why we do that, or why did I never ask him about that? You just do it. Because he's like, right, we're dosing the sheep today, this is what we're using. And I'd be like, all right, that's fine. Or we're doing this and that's, and I was like, all these questions I should ask. So I started being like, why am I doing this? The amount of stuff I've learned in terms of like resistance to wormers and how terrible, I don't know anything about cows and beef and dairy, but sheep farmers are shocking. Like their use of medicines and wormers and fungicides and all these things, and the things I've learned since doing that and feeling that responsibility to put information out has just been like massive for the way I farm. I do feel like it's important to get the message out about what I'm doing and trying to educate other folk and do it right, but there is always that danger with folk like myself who are on YouTube and doing these things of, well, misinformation on social media is massive. So, we need to get the balance of, it's great doing farming things and stuff as long as we do it. Try and do it right. Do you know what I mean? And try and send the right message. And
well, you can come along to a couple of the farm visits with the kids. I'd love that.
I've been setting that up for the last 10 minutes listening to you.
Yeah. I told them that. Don't give out any of my details. I told you that. No, that's absolutely fine.
And before we finish, Monty, we'll surely have to mention the fact that we won the Calcutta Cup at the weekend.
Oh, you know what? Here we are, I'll blow my trumpet for a minute here. So this time last year, after the Calcutta Cup last year, I had Princess Anne as our guest on the podcast. And it was actually the first question I asked her was, "Ma'am, what did you make of the Calcutta Cup win?" That actually got herself on a good basis, and she was quite amenable to some of my more silly questions after that. But yeah, awesome.
I tell you, Matt, I saw a funny thing. My nephew was 5 today, and like all he's known is Scottish dominance over England. Like, what a life!
Yeah.
What a life!
He'll learn.
He will.
Massive thanks again to all 4 of our panellists. We had former Aldi executive Marion MacCormick, SAOS Vice Chair Rory Christie, the sheep game YouTuber Cammy Wilson, and Berwickshire arable farmer Neil White. You can find all of them on Twitter, apart from Cammy. Cammy says he's too young for Twitter, and you'll only find him on Instagram. My goodness, it makes me feel old. Anyway, just a reminder, as I said at the start, this episode is part 2 of a much bigger chat. You can go back and find last week's episode, part 1, to get the full benefit of everything our panel had to say. And another reminder, the On-Farm podcast is brought to you by our team here at Scene&HerdPR and Marketing. You can get in touch with us anytime. Maybe after listening to this, you've been inspired to find ways to inject positivity into your message to consumers. We can definitely help, I'm sure. That's it from me. Take care. See you next time.